Hello friends, welcome to my channel Sushant Chesswise. Today we are at the next topic, that is we are looking at a game once again. It is about the king's role in the endgame. So it is said that king is a piece in the endgame, and we are going to take a game by Mikhail Tal, who surprisingly for us goes for an endgame and his king goes in for a walk. So I have taken this in position here, Mikhail Tal white and visits in black. Obviously, one would expect Tal's game to start with attack and then end with sacrifices. But here something different happens. Of course, at top level, we cannot expect every game to end in an attack. There are many positional factors which can decide the outcome of the game, which is what happens here. We have a typical dragon position here where white goes with the move h4. White wants to play h5 and get his attack rolling. If bishop takes h4, instantly there comes queen h3 harassing the bishop, and after g5 there will be the move g3. When if bishop moves, then there is mate on h7. After the instant bd4, there is rook takes d4. When after rook b8, white can play the move queen f2. Queen b6 can be met by na4. Black decides to keep his options open. He goes rook b8 and of course stops h5 indirectly. Black wants bd4, rook d4, qb6, attacking the d4 rook and the b2 pawn both. Queen f2, keeping eye on the b6 square. Black goes rook b4, attacking the bishop. Bishop takes f6, knight takes f6. Here Tal correctly plays the move a3. Do note that queen a7 is very risky on account of qd6. 4 is attacked, and if any move like g3, then there is the very strong rook takes b2, king takes b2, qb4 check, kc1, queen c3, and we can easily make out that it is black who is much better. a3 would move, driving the rook on b4 away first. Black goes qb6, attacks the queen, and he is not interested in wasting the rook move. So queen takes b6, rook takes b6, and now the game totally changes its characteristic and white plays according to the position. He has got some pluses here. Let us try to assess the situation. The pawns on c6 and d5, if they get blocked, the bishop on c8 will be slightly passive. The knight on f6 has the squares e4 and g4. It's well placed right now. Rook on b6 is decently placed, and rook on f8 can go to the e8 square. For white, we see c3 and d1 are well placed. Bishop on f1 needs to develop, and the rook on h1 needs to come out. First, white goes na4. True, the knight goes to the corner, but it is eyeing the c5 square, from where it will stop the advance of the c pawn. Rook b7, keeping eye on the e7 square. Bishop d3. Developing the bishop, intends to stop bishop f5. Also, he can aim for the move f5 himself. Knight h5 attacks f4. Knight can come to g3 in some cases. Rook f1. He intends to break the position with f5. Black played re7 in the game. If knight g3, rook f3, knight f5, placing the knight nicely, then white gives up the bishop, and after bishop f5, and he can go with the idea of knight c5, but not instantly. First he should play re1, taking control of the e5, then plant his knight on c5, and as we have discussed before also, these pawns will get fixed on the bishop's color in the center. So it can become like a knight versus bad bishop position, although this bishop is not as bad as we normally see. We are going to cover many knight versus bad bishop cases as well in the future. Black goes re7, and here white plays the very strong f5, sacrificing the pawn. After knight g3, there is f6 followed by rf3. Black wins the pawn with gf5. Do note that after bishop f5, there is bishop takes f5. When after knight g3, he can move the bishop away to d3. Knight f1, rook f1. There will be two pieces for rook and pawn which would favor white. G takes f5. Now bishop f5 render because of knight g3. Rook e1. Fantastic play. White has first ruined the black's pawn structure, and now he is fighting for the open fight. White has some other idea in mind which we will soon see. Rook e8, rook takes e7, rook takes e7. Black exchanged another pair of rooks. He wants to capitalize on his extra material, but we can see that there are some glaring weaknesses in the position. The squares c5, d4, d2, f4, c3, they are all falling on the black squares, which white tries to or intends to exploit. And here white has to find the right plan, which he must have actually seen while playing the move f5. White has the very strong move kd2. Although there are some pieces on the board, white starts using his king. King is heading for the d4 square, and in some cases it can go to c5, and in other it can go to e5 and penetrate through the d6 squares. So the king is, that is why, a piece in the endgame. Truly uncharacteristic of Mikhail Tal's games, but here we see Mikhail Tal playing the endgame exceedingly well. Black goes knight g3, king c3, f4. Idea is simple. He has an extra pawn. He will trade the bishops with bishop f5 and look to penetrate his rook on the e2 square. kd4, bishop f5. White has to be careful here. White plays the good move rd2, stopping bishop d3 when cd3, rook e2 was threat. So rook d2 takes care of that. So black refrains from going bd3 instantly. He plays re6. Black changes his plan. Rook is heading to the h6 square. He wants to take the pawn on h4, and then rook can go to the h2 square. White is not interested in defending over there. He creates his own play. Knight c5, rook h6, ke5. Bishop is attacked this time. So is f4. Means white is sacrificing another pawn. Bishop takes d3, c takes d3, rook h4, and comes kd6. White's idea is simple. He will pick the c6 and d5 pawns, then start pushing his d-passed pawn. Black, who is 2 pawns up, but we see that none of his pawns are passed pawns. Black goes rook h6 check, protecting c6, king c7, knight f5. Knight can go to d4, protect c6, rook can come to h2, and black can go with the idea of f3. White has to be very careful. Of course, he has an extra piece, the king on c7. He plays kb7, attacking the a7 pawn, protecting c6, and now rook f2. Before black gets rook h2, white immediately attacks f4. The point is that after rook h2 here, rook takes f4, d4 is attacked, knight e6 creating a double attack. But here we note that after the move, either knight e6 first or first rook g4 check, king f8, knight e6, fe6, king takes c6. White is the one who has some initiative. White will soon get b4, b5 and create a passer on the queen side, or he can do kd6 and pressurize the pawn on e6. So this position is somewhat better for white. Black goes a5, protecting the a pawn. Takes f4 and knight e6. Black was counting on this endgame actually. Perhaps he had anticipated the move ne6, but I really doubt. He must have not missed the move rook g4 check. So rook g4 check, king f8. Maybe he could have missed the move king c6, which also I feel it's very unlikely. It's a master game, and generally master will not miss such a move. See, the knight's discovered check causes no damage. So black went knight c5, king takes c5, and this endgame which we have already, we can see that white is somewhat better. Rook e6, d5, black went rook b6. So b4, a takes b4, a takes b4. It's evident that extra piece, the king, has yielded him the pawn, ke7, king c5, rook f6. The rook wants to become active. White goes with the very simple and useful rook d4. See the splendid placing of the rook. Rook cuts off the black king. Now the black king cannot stop the pawn. So it's a typical Lucena technique, but with more pawns. Secondly, the rook on d4 guards d3, and when the g pawn comes to g4, rook will guard both the pawns from the middle. So the best placing usually for the rook is behind the passed pawn. Next is side to the pawns, and the worst placing usually is the front of the pawn. So here the rook is nicely placed because it is cutting off the black king. So rook d4, good move. which actually seals the point. Rook check, king b6, king c6 was also equally good. Rook check, kc7, rook f5 first. So white has played his king to c7 with a plan. There comes rook e4 check first. First cutting the king off further away. King comes to f6 and the white king retreats back to c6, covering the b5, b6, b7 squares. And now the black rook will have to go and occupy the square behind the passed pawn. Rook f2, g4. Rook nicely guards both the pawns and black goes h5. The only try, he takes h5. Idea is he will go kg5 and start pushing his own pawns. 2 pawns down, but black manages decent play. The best quality that we see in master games is that they don't give up very easily. They try to make most of whatever is there in the position. b5, white simply ignores. 5, rook b4. Another good move. Rook comes behind the passed pawn. f4, b6, f3, b7, rook c2, check. Black is heading for an endgame with simultaneous queens here, but white had foreseen the outcome. d5, f2, b8 queen, f1 equal to queen. But such a play should only be allowed if we have seen thoroughly what happens after the queening of pawns. Of course, here white had seen that he has got a forced mate. Comes qg3 check, king f6, qg6 check. Black resigned actually a couple of moves before at the time of f, because he saw that after ke7, rook b7, kd6, there is queen d6 followed by qc7 mate. Even the move qg8, queen f8 mates. It was a lengthy game with exhaustive analysis, and I have of course omitted the opening part so that it doesn't become too lengthy. I hope you will find the lesson useful and instructive. Thanks for your time.